The council chamber stretched 300 meters across, its walls made of transparent metal that showed the stars beyond. Captain Kyle Bennett stood at the back of the room with Ambassador Lisa Chen, watching alien representatives argue about the coming threat. His uniform felt tight around his shoulders. 3 months ago, humanity had made first contact with the galaxy. Now they stood in a room with creatures from 60 different worlds. The High Chancellor Vesh raised one scaled hand for silence. The reptilian leader's yellow eyes scanned the chamber. The Ravager fleet approaches our borders. Intelligence reports confirm they destroyed the Helkan colonies in less than 2 days. We must prepare our defenses. Act. The Ravager fleet. Act. 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 Commander Zekthor stepped forward. The insectoid alien's forearms clicked together in what Kyle had learned was a gesture of confidence. My warriors are ready, Chancellor. The Kryn Collective has never lost a defensive battle. We will crush these invaders as we have crushed all others. Kyle shifted his weight. He had studied the reports about the Ravagers. They were brutal and efficient. The alien defense plans he had seen were full of problems. But no one had asked for his opinion. Lisa leaned close and whispered, "Should we offer again?" "They won't listen," Kyle said quietly. Vesh addressed the council. "Commander Zekthor, your forces will hold the primary defense line. The Vryn will provide air support. The Torgath will secure the flanks." The Chancellor paused and looked toward the human delegation. "Our newest members, the humans, will assist with supply management and rear support duties." Kyle felt his jaw tighten. Rear support. They were being assigned to move boxes while the real fighting happened elsewhere. Zekthor's mandibles clicked in. What Kyle had learned was laughter. "A wise choice, Chancellor. The humans are too fragile for frontline combat. Look at them. Soft skin. No natural armor. No claws or fangs. They would break in the first moments of battle." Several other aliens made sounds of agreement. A massive Torgath warrior, easily 3 meters tall, looked down at Kyle with something like pity. "No offense to your species, Captain. But war requires strength. You are simply not built for it." Lisa stepped forward, her diplomatic training keeping her voice calm. "Chancellor, humanity has extensive military experience. We have fought wars for thousands of years. We understand combat." A bird-like alien named Tesh tilted her head. "But what kind of wars, Ambassador? Your reports say you come from a Class 7 world. Minimal predators. Comfortable climate. You evolved in paradise. How could you understand real conflict?" Kyle clenched his fists. Class 7. They thought Earth was easy. They had no idea about hurricanes, earthquakes, diseases, or the countless ways their paradise had tried to kill humanity for millions of years. "We have combat experience," Lisa said. "We can help." Zekthor made that clicking laugh again. "Experience moving supplies? Perhaps. But true warfare? When the Ravagers come with their blades and their fury, you would freeze. Your biology betrays you. Humans are not warriors." Kyle had heard enough. "With respect, Commander, you're making assumptions without data." The insectoid turned to face him fully. All 4 eyes focused on Kyle. "Am I? Your species has no natural weapons. Your reaction time is average. Your strength is below galactic standard. What am I missing, Captain?" "Adaptability," Kyle said. "Resilience. Strategic thinking." "Pretty words," Zekthor said. "But when a Ravager is tearing through your ship's hull, pretty words won't save you. Raw power will. Natural instinct will. Things your species lacks." Vesh raised his hand again. "Captain Bennett, we appreciate your enthusiasm. But the commander makes valid points. Human physiology is not suited for intense combat. We cannot risk your people in the primary battle zones. You will be more useful, supporting our warriors, who are better equipped for such violence." Kyle wanted to argue. He wanted to show them the combat footage from human wars, the tactical innovations, the sheer determination that had let humans survive everything their planet threw at them, but he knew it would be useless. They had already decided. They looked at human bodies and saw weakness. Lisa touched his arm gently. A warning to let it go. Understood, Chancellor, Kyle said, forcing his voice to stay level. The rest of the meeting covered logistics and battle formations. Kyle watched the tactical displays and saw the problems immediately. The aliens fought in rigid formations. Their battle plans assumed the enemy would follow certain rules. They had backup plans, but only if specific things went wrong in specific ways. There was no flexibility, no room for chaos. When the Ravagers hit them, Kyle thought, those plans would fall apart in minutes. After 2 more hours, Vesh dismissed the council. The aliens filed out, many of them still discussing their battle strategies with confidence that bordered on arrogance. Zekthor passed Kyle and Lisa without acknowledgement, already talking with his Kryn officers about glory and honor. Tesh paused as she walked by. The bird-like alien studied Kyle with sharp eyes. You disagreed with our plans. I saw some potential issues, Kyle admitted. Such as, your formations are too rigid. If the Ravagers don't attack the way you expect, your whole strategy collapses. Tesh's feathers ruffled. Our strategies have worked for 300 years. Against enemies who fought like you, Kyle said. The Ravagers don't care about honor or formation. They care about winning. The alien was quiet for a moment. You think differently than we do, Captain. I am not sure if that is wisdom or simply inexperience. She walked away before Kyle could respond. Lisa and Kyle made their way back to the human section of the station. The hallways were empty now. Most aliens were preparing for the coming battle. That went well, Lisa said with bitter humor. They think we're useless, Kyle said. They think we're weak, Lisa corrected. There's a difference. Kyle stopped walking and turned to face her. Lisa, their defense plan is going to fail. When it does, a lot of people are going to die. What can we do? They won't listen. We prepare, Kyle said. We get our people ready for the worst-case scenario. Because when things go wrong, they're going to need us. They just don't know it yet. Lisa studied his face. You think it's going to be that bad? I think the Ravagers are going to hit them harder than they expect, and I think their pride is going to get them killed. Kyle started walking again. Come on, we need to brief our team. If we're going to be moving supplies, we better be ready to move them in a combat zone. They reached the human quarters 30 minutes later. A dozen soldiers were waiting, along with Captain Vera Moss, who commanded their ship. Kyle looked at their faces. Young, trained. Rhea Defense Station Orbital 7 hung in space like a massive wheel, its docking arms extending outward to accommodate ships from across the galaxy. Kyle stood on the observation deck of the human ship Defiant, watching as alien warships took their positions around the station. Each vessel was impressive. Sleek Vryn fighters with energy shields, heavy Kryn battleships bristling with weapons, massive Torgath carriers that could hold thousands of warriors. The Defiant looked small beside them. A simple frigate with standard weapons and basic armor. Nothing fancy. Nothing that would impress the aliens who had been building warships for thousands of years. They're staring at us again, Lieutenant Ben Carter said, nodding toward a group of Kryn warriors on the adjacent dock. The insectoids were pointing at the human ship and making clicking sounds. Let them stare, Kyle said. We've got work to do. The human contingent moved through the station toward their assigned positions in the cargo bays. As they walked, alien warriors stepped aside and watched. Some seemed curious. Most seemed dismissive. A few laughed. A Torgath warrior, scales gleaming under the station lights, looked down at Ben and shook his massive head. Such small creatures to send to war. Does your species not care for its young? Ben kept walking without responding, but Kyle saw his jaw clench. The soldier was 30 years old, not young by any measure, but to the Torgath he probably looked like a child. They reached Cargo Bay 12, their assigned position. It was far from the primary defense zones, deep in the station's interior. Safe, the aliens had said. Away from the real fighting. Start setting up defensive positions, Kyle ordered. Vera, get our communications linked with the station systems. Ben, I want firing lanes established and backup routes mapped. Sir, are we expecting combat here? Private Emma Walsh asked. She was young, barely 22, with bright eyes that still held some excitement about being in space. We're expecting the unexpected, Kyle said. The aliens think the Ravagers will attack the outer defenses and get stopped. I think the Ravagers are going to punch through and hit everywhere at once. Pessimistic, Captain, Vera Moss said. But she was already pulling up station schematics on her tablet. Realistic, Kyle corrected. They worked through the morning, turning the cargo bay into something that could be defended if needed. The aliens had assigned them to protect supplies. Kyle made sure those supplies could be protected from any direction. Around noon, footsteps echoed across the bay. Tesh, the bird-like alien from the council, approached with careful steps. Her feathers were a deep blue today, which Kyle had learned meant she was thinking hard about something. Captain Bennett, she said. May I speak with you? Of course. Tesh looked around the cargo bay, studying the human preparations. You are setting up defensive positions. But you are in the safest part of the station. Hope for the best, prepare for the worst, Kyle said. A human saying? An old one. Tesh tilted her head in that bird-like way. I have been reading your species' historical records, the data files you provided to the council. Your wars are strange to me. How so? You fight without honor codes, Tesh said. No formal challenges. No ritual combat. You ambush enemies. You retreat and attack again. You use terrain as a weapon. You change tactics constantly. She paused. It is chaos. It's adaptability, Kyle said. We fight to win, not to look good doing it. The Commander Zekthor would call that cowardice. The Commander Zekthor has never fought an enemy who didn't care about his rules, Kyle said. He pulled up a display showing the alien defense formations. Look at these battle plans. Beautiful formations. Perfect spacing. Everything in its place. But what happens when the enemy doesn't attack where you expect? We adapt our formation, Tesh said. How long does that take? She was quiet. Minutes, right? Kyle continued. Maybe longer. And in those minutes, the enemy is tearing through your lines because you're all standing in the wrong place trying to get back into the right formation. We have centuries of combat experience, Tesh said, but her voice was less certain. Against enemies with centuries of similar combat experience, Kyle said. Everyone following the same basic rules. The Ravagers don't follow those rules. Tesh's feathers ruffled. You think we will lose. I think you'll be surprised. And surprise in battle gets people killed. The alien studied him for a long moment. Your species survived on a Class 7 world. Comfortable conditions. Few natural predators. Yet you speak like a warrior race. I do not understand this contradiction. Ben had been listening nearby. He approached and said, Permission to speak? Captain? Kyle nodded. Ben looked at Tesh. Our world wasn't as comfortable as your reports say. Humans aren't apex predators. We're not the biggest or strongest or fastest, but we survived because we're persistent. We chase prey until it drops from exhaustion. We track wounded animals for days. We don't give up. Persistence is not the same as combat prowess, Tesh said. It's exactly combat prowess, Ben said. Just a different kind. We don't win fights by being stronger. We win by outlasting the opponent. By adapting faster. By being too stubborn to quit. Tesh looked between them. The commander would say this is the thinking of prey animals, not predators. Maybe, Kyle said. But humanity has been at the top of Earth's food chain for 50,000 years. And we did it without claws or fangs or natural armor. We did it with brains and determination. Before Tesh could respond, alarms began wailing throughout the station. Red lights flashed in the corridors. Kyle's communicator crackled to life. All stations. All stations. Vesh's voice came through. The Ravager fleet has been detected. Estimated arrival in 18 hours. All personnel to battle stations. Tesh's feathers stood up straight. It begins. She looked at Kyle one more time. I hope you are wrong about our defenses, Captain. So do I, Kyle said honestly. The alien hurried away. Kyle turned to his team. You heard the Chancellor. Final checks on everything. Weapons. Ammunition. Medical supplies. Communication equipment. I want triple redundancy on all systems. That's overkill for a cargo bay assignment, sir, Corporal Ryan Phillips said. The medic was checking his equipment already, even as he questioned the order. Humor me, Kyle said. They worked through the afternoon and into the evening. Throughout the station, aliens performed their pre-battle rituals. The Kryn warriors gathered in their meditation chambers, clicking and humming in unison. The Torgath sharpened their natural claws and painted war symbols on their scales. The Vryn practiced aerial combat maneuvers in the station's zero-gravity training zones. The humans cleaned weapons, reviewed station maps, and planned for every scenario they could imagine. At one point, Commander Zekthor passed through the cargo bay with a group of his officers. He paused to watch the humans work. Still preparing, Captain? The insectoid's tone was amused. You are in the safest position on the station. The Ravagers will never reach this deep inside. Probably not, Kyle agreed. But if they do, we'll be ready. Zekthor clicked his mandibles. If they reach this deep, Captain, the battle is already lost, but I admire your dedication. Even if it is unnecessary. He continued walking, his officers making clicking sounds that were probably laughter. Ben watched them go. He really thinks we're useless. He thinks we're weak, Kyle said. There's a difference. Is there? Weak means you can't fight, Kyle said. Night cycle came to the station. Most aliens rested in their quarters, confident in their battle plans. Kyle sat in the cargo bay, reviewing the tactical displays one more time. Vera joined him with 2 cups of coffee. Can't sleep? She asked. Thinking, Kyle said, accepting the coffee. About how badly this is going to go? About how we're going to help when it does. He pointed to the display. The aliens are strong. Their weapons are powerful. Their ships are impressive. But they fight like they're still in the old days. Honor and glory and formation. The Ravagers are going to hit them like a hammer, and all that structure is going to shatter. And then they're going to need someone who knows how. The first wave of Ravager ships appeared on the sensors like a swarm of angry insects. Kyle watched the tactical display in the cargo bay as the alien defenses moved into position. Zekthor's Kryn battleships formed perfect lines. The Vryn fighters took their assigned positions in textbook formation. The Torgath carriers held the flanks exactly as planned. They're beautiful formations, Vera said, standing beside him. They're about to be beautiful wreckage, Kyle muttered. The Ravagers hit the defense line like a tsunami. Their ships weren't elegant like the alien vessels. They were chunks of metal covered in weapons and armor, built for one purpose only: destruction. For the first 5 minutes, the alien defenses held. Kryn weapons tore through Ravager hulls. Vryn fighters danced through space, their energy shields deflecting return fire. The Torgath launched wave after wave of fighters. The tactical display showed the battle going according to plan. Then the Ravagers changed tactics. Instead of engaging the defense line properly, 3 dozen Ravager ships simply accelerated to maximum speed and rammed straight through the formations. They didn't care about taking damage. They didn't care about dying. They just wanted through. Kyle saw the moment everything started to fall apart. The perfect alien formations broke as ships tried to avoid collisions. Some succeeded. Many didn't. Explosions lit up the space around the station as Ravager ships traded their lives for chaos. They're not fighting for glory, Ben said, watching the display. They're fighting to win, and the aliens aren't ready for that, Kyle said. More Ravager ships poured through the broken formations. The aliens tried to reform their lines, but it took time. Time they didn't have. The Ravagers were already targeting the station itself. Alarms blared throughout Orbital 7. Vesh's voice came over the communications system, trying to sound calm but failing. All defensive units, fall back to secondary positions. Repeat, fall back to secondary positions. They're retreating, Emma said, surprise in her voice. They're following their backup plan, Kyle corrected. He was right. The Ravager ships ignored the retreating alien forces and went straight for the station. Hundreds of boarding pods launched from the Ravager vessels. They slammed into the station's hull like bullets, drilling through metal and creating breaches in dozens of locations. Boarding actions throughout the station, Vera reported, her tablet showing red warning lights everywhere. Sections 7, 12, 23, 41. They're hitting everywhere at once. Kyle grabbed his weapon. Ben, Emma, Ryan, with me. Vera, coordinate from here. Keep comms open if you can. Where are you going? Vera asked. To do what we do best, Kyle said. Adapt. They moved through the corridors toward the sounds of combat. Emergency lighting cast everything in red. Atmosphere was venting in some sections, the station's automatic systems struggling to contain all the hull breaches at once. They rounded a corner and found chaos. A group of Kryn warriors stood in the middle of the corridor, weapons raised, looking confused. Ravagers were attacking from above. Having torn through a ceiling panel, the aliens were trying to form a defensive line, but there was nothing to defend. The enemy was all around them. They don't know what to do, Ben said quietly. They trained for frontal assaults. Not this. Kyle didn't hesitate. Take the high position, he shouted at the Kryn warriors. When they looked at him in confusion, he demonstrated by firing upward at a Ravager emerging from the ceiling. The creature dropped, and Kyle moved to cover behind a support column. Ben and Emma spread out automatically, taking positions that gave them firing angles on multiple approaches. Ryan stayed mobile, ready to reach anyone who got injured. The Kryn warriors watched for a moment, then slowly began to adapt. They weren't used to fighting this way, but they learned fast when their lives depended on it. More Ravagers came. Kyle fought with cold efficiency, targeting weak points, using corners for cover, never staying in one place too long. This wasn't about honor or glory. This was about staying alive and taking down as many enemies as possible. A Ravager got too close to Emma. The creature was massive, nearly 3 meters tall with arms like tree trunks. Emma didn't try to match its strength. She dodged under its swing, targeted the joint in its knee, and when it fell, she put 3 rounds into its head. The Kryn warriors watched her with what might have been shock. The small human had just taken down something 3 times her size in seconds. The immediate threat cleared. Kyle checked his team. Everyone was fine. Move, he ordered. Standing still in combat gets you killed. They pushed deeper into the station. The corridors were full of alien defenders trying to regroup, but the Ravagers were everywhere. The aliens kept trying to form proper defensive positions, but the enemy wouldn't let them. It was chaos. And humans, Kyle thought, were good at chaos. They found Tesh's wing pinned down in a junction near the main reactor. The bird-like aliens were taking heavy fire from 3 different directions. Their shields were failing. They had nowhere to retreat. We should fall back, Ben said. Our orders are to defend the cargo bay. Kyle looked at the tactical display. Tesh and her fighters would be dead in minutes. New orders. We're going in. Sir, that's tactically unsound, Ben said, but he was already checking his weapon. Since when did we care about sound tactics? Kyle asked. We care about what works. Quote, they approached from a maintenance tunnel, one of the routes Kyle had memorized during their preparation. The Ravagers were focused on Tesh's position, not watching their rear. Classic mistake. Kyle's team hit them from behind. Fast. Brutal. Efficient. No warning. No honor. Just violence directed with precision. They cleared the first group of Ravagers in under 30 seconds. Push through, Kyle shouted to Tesh. We've got your back. The bird-like aliens hesitated for just a moment, then moved. They flew through the corridor, while Kyle's team provided covering fire. It wasn't graceful. It wasn't according to any battle plan. But it worked. They regrouped in a side corridor. Tesh's feathers were scorched, and her breathing was rapid. You came for us. You were in trouble, Kyle said simply. But your orders. Your position. Orders change when the situation changes, Kyle said. That's how humans fight. We adapt. An explosion rocked the station. Part of the ceiling collapsed. Kyle pulled Emma back just before debris crushed the spot where she'd been standing. Ryan was already scanning for other threats. The command structure is collapsing, Tesh said. I cannot reach my commander. Communications are failing throughout the station. Then we use hand signals, Ben said. Like this. He demonstrated a few basic military gestures. Stop. Move. Enemy spotted. Cover me. Tesh watched carefully, then tried the signals herself. This is primitive. This is effective, Ben said. Technology fails. Bodies don't. Another group of defenders stumbled into their position. Kryn warriors led by Commander Zekthor himself. The insectoid's armor was damaged, and one of his 4 arms hung useless. He looked at Kyle with all 4 eyes. Captain Bennett, Zekthor said. We are cut off from our main force. Our formations have broken. The battle is not going as planned. I noticed, Kyle said. We need to reach the command center, Zekthor continued. But the route is blocked by Ravagers. Heavy concentrations. Kyle pulled up the station map on his tactical display. The main corridors are blocked. But there are maintenance tunnels. Smaller. Harder to defend for them. Easier for us to move through. That is unconventional, Zekthor said. That's why it'll work, Kyle said. The Ravagers expect you to fight like you always fight. Straight ahead. Formation. Honor. We go through the tunnels. We hit them from the side. We don't stop moving. It is not proper battle doctrine, Zekthor said. A massive explosion shook the station. Atmosphere began venting from a nearby breach. Your proper doctrine isn't working, Kyle said flatly. Right now you have 2 choices. You can follow your training and probably die. Or, you can follow me and maybe live. Zekthor looked at his warriors. Then at Kyle's team. Then at Tesh, who nodded once. We follow you, Captain, Zekthor said. The words seemed painful for him. Kyle didn't waste time on victory or gloating. Ben, take point. Emma, rear guard. Ryan, stay middle and keep everyone alive. Tesh, your people can fly, so you scout ahead. Zekthor, your warriors are heavy hitters, so you're our hammer if we need to break through. Everyone understand? They nodded. Mixed human and alien forces, working together. It wasn't in any manual. It wasn't according to any plan. But right now, it was their only chance. The maintenance tunnels were narrow and dark, perfect for ambushes. Kyle moved through them with his weapon ready, every sense alert. Behind him, the mixed group of humans and aliens followed. Zekthor's warriors had stopped trying to maintain formation. In these tight spaces, formation was useless. They simply moved and adapted, watching the humans and learning. Tesh flew ahead, her small frame perfect for scouting. She returned after 2 minutes, feathers ruffled with stress. Heavy Ravager presence in the next junction. At least 20. Can we go around? Kyle asked. All other routes are blocked or venting atmosphere. Kyle studied his tactical display. Then we go through. But we do it smart. He turned to the group. The junction is open space. The Ravagers will expect us to come through the main entrance, so we won't. Tesh, how many access points are there? The bird-like alien closed her eyes, remembering the layout. 4. North, south, east, west. Perfect. We split up, 4 groups. We hit them from all directions at once. They can't defend everywhere. Zekthor's mandibles clicked. That divides our force. It makes us weaker. It makes us unpredictable, Kyle said. And right now, unpredictable is what keeps us alive. Ben, take Emma and 3 Kryn warriors. East entrance. Tesh, you and your flyers come from above. Zekthor, You take the south with your heaviest fighters. Ryan and I will take the west with whoever's left. And we just attack? Zekthor asked. No coordination? No proper timing? We coordinate by watching each other, Kyle said. When one group engages, everyone engages. Simple. That is chaos, Zekthor said. That's war, Kyle replied. They split up. Kyle led his group through the cramped tunnel toward the west access point. Ryan followed close behind, his medical training making him move silently. 2 young Kryn warriors came with them, learning to move like humans. Quick, quiet, efficient. Through a small window in the access door, Kyle could see the junction. The Ravagers were waiting, weapons ready, watching the main entrance. They expected the aliens to come straight at them. They were wrong. Kyle saw Ben's group reach their position, saw Tesh hovering near an overhead vent, saw Zekthor's warriors ready at the south entrance. Everyone was in place. He caught Ben's eye through another window and nodded once. Then he kicked open the door and started firing. The Ravagers spun toward him, confused. Before they could react fully, Ben's team hit them from the opposite side. Then Tesh's flyers dropped from above. Then Zekthor's warriors charged from the south. 4 directions. Total chaos. The Ravagers were strong and brutal, but they couldn't defend everywhere at once. They fell back, trying to regroup, but there was nowhere safe. Everywhere they turned, enemies were attacking. Kyle moved constantly. Fire 3 rounds. Step left. Target the next enemy. Move again. Never stop. Never give them a clear shot. The Kryn warriors with him tried to copy his movements. They were clumsy at first, used to standing firm and fighting with honor. But they learned fast. The fight lasted 90 seconds. 20 Ravagers down. No losses on Kyle's side. 3 wounded. But Ryan was already treating them. Impossible, Zekthor said, looking at the dead Ravagers. We were outnumbered. Numbers don't matter if you're fighting smart, Kyle said. Everyone okay to move? They were. They continued toward the command center, moving through the station that had become a war zone. They passed other defenders, aliens who looked at the mixed group with shock, humans and aliens fighting together. It shouldn't work, but it was working. They found another group pinned down. Amphibious aliens, called the Koth, led by Commander Ashka. Their position was being overrun. Kyle didn't even pause to think. His team simply attacked the Ravagers from behind, broke their assault, and pulled the Koth to safety. Ashka stared at Kyle with large, wet eyes. You saved us. But why? We are not your people. Everyone here is my people right now, Kyle said. We're all trying to survive the same battle. But we dismissed your species. We called you weak. You were wrong, Kyle said simply. Come on. We're heading to command. You're welcome to join. Ashka and the Koth warriors followed without question. The group grew larger as they moved. More aliens joined them. Warriors from different species who had lost their commanders, lost their formations, lost their battle plans. They followed Kyle because he seemed to know what he was doing, because he fought like someone who refused to lose. They reached a long corridor that led to the command center. It was full of Ravagers, at least 50 of them, holding the position. We cannot break through that, Zekthor said. Not without massive casualties. Kyle studied the corridor, studied the Ravagers, studied the layout. We don't break through. We break them. He pointed to support columns along the corridor. Those are load-bearing. Damage enough of them, and the ceiling comes down. Tesh, can your flyers deliver explosives to those positions? Yes, but the Ravagers will shoot them down. Not if we're keeping them busy, Kyle said. He turned to Zekthor. Can your warriors give us a frontal assault? Draw their attention? That is suicide, Zekthor said. Not if we're only doing it for 30 seconds, Kyle said. Just long enough for Tesh's people to place the charges. Then everyone retreats. We blow the ceiling. The corridor collapses. The Ravagers are buried. That is devious, Ashka said. That's effective, Kyle corrected. Zekthor looked at his warriors, looked at the humans, looked at the corridor full of enemies. Finally, he nodded. "We will trust your judgment, Captain. Though every instinct tells me this is wrong. Your instincts are trained for honor combat," Kyle said. "This isn't about honor. This is about winning." They set up the plan. Zekthor's warriors prepared to charge. Tesh's flyers gathered their explosive charges. Kyle's humans positioned themselves to provide covering fire. Everyone knew their role. "On my mark," Kyle said. 3, 2, 1, go." Zekthor's warriors charged forward, roaring battle cries. The Ravagers turned to face them, weapons firing. It looked like a suicide run, but while the Ravagers focused on the charging warriors, Tesh's flyers darted along the ceiling, moving too fast to track. They placed charges on 3 support columns and retreated. "Fall back," Kyle shouted. Zekthor's warriors turned and ran. The Ravagers started to pursue, sensing victory. They were bunched together in the corridor, chasing their prey. Kyle triggered the explosives. The support columns exploded. The ceiling groaned. Then it came down. Tons of metal and concrete collapsed onto the Ravagers below. The sound was deafening. Dust filled the air. When it cleared, the corridor was blocked by debris, and the Ravagers were gone. The aliens stared at the destruction in silence. Finally, Zekthor spoke. "That was not warfare. That was... I do not have words." "That was practical," Kyle said. "The enemy is stopped. We're alive. We can reach the command center." "Mission accomplished. But there was no glory in it," Zekthor said. "No honor. We used tricks and deception. We used the tools available to us," Kyle said. "The Ravagers don't care about your honor. They just want to kill you. So you either adapt and survive, or you maintain your honor and die. Your choice." They climbed over the rubble and reached the command center. Vesh was there, trying to coordinate what was left of the defense. The reptilian chancellor looked exhausted and stressed. When he saw Kyle's group enter, his eyes widened. "Captain Bennett? How did you reach us?" "We adapted, Chancellor," Kyle said. "Now, what's the situation?" Vesh pulled up tactical displays. "The station is lost. Too many breaches. Too many Ravager boarding parties. Our formations have collapsed. Our warriors are scattered and confused. We cannot hold." "Then we don't hold," Kyle said. "We attack." "Attack what?" "The Ravagers are everywhere." Kyle pointed to the tactical display. "Their command ship, right there. Coordinates mark 347. That's where their leader is. That's where they're coordinating from. We take out that ship. The Ravagers lose coordination too." "That ship is surrounded by their fleet," Vesh said. "A boarding action would be suicide." "So was charging down that corridor," Kyle said. "But we made it work. Get me a boarding team. Volunteers only. We're going to hit that command ship." "This is insane," Vesh said. "This is war," Kyle replied. "And in war, sometimes the insane option is the only option that works." Silence filled the command center. Then Zekthor stepped forward. "I volunteer. If the human captain says this can work, then I will follow him." Tesh stepped forward next. "As will I. He has earned my trust." The boarding pod hit the Ravager command ship like a hammer striking metal. Kyle felt his teeth rattle from the impact. Around him, his team braced against their restraints. 12 humans and 20 aliens crammed into a space meant for cargo, not people. The pod's cutting torch began burning through the enemy hull. 30 seconds, Ben called out, watching the torch work. Kyle checked his weapon one more time. Checked his team. Everyone was ready. Scared. Maybe. But ready. The torch broke through. The pod door exploded outward. Kyle went first, firing before he even saw targets. He moved left immediately, making room for the next person. Ben went right. Emma went center. The team poured out of the pod like water through a broken dam. They were in a maintenance corridor. Ravagers came at them from both ends. The fighting was brutal and close. No time for tactics, just survival instinct and training. A Ravager grabbed Kyle's weapon, trying to tear it from his hands. Kyle let it go. The move surprised the creature. In that half-second of confusion, Kyle grabbed a tool from his belt and drove it into the Ravager's eye. The creature fell. Kyle picked up his weapon and kept moving. Tesh's flyers used their speed to confuse the enemy. They'd dive, strike, and retreat before the Ravagers could react. Zekthor's warriors finally had the close combat they craved, their forearms giving them advantages in tight spaces. Ashka's people used their flexibility to dodge attacks and strike from unexpected angles. And the humans fought with cold efficiency. No wasted movement, no unnecessary risks. Just precise violence, delivered exactly where it would do the most damage. They pushed deeper into the ship. The Ravagers kept coming. But something was changing. Kyle noticed it first. The enemy attacks were getting less coordinated, more desperate. They were losing organization. "We're close to the bridge," Kyle said. "I can feel it." "Feel it?" Zekthor asked, fighting beside him. "Human instinct," Kyle said. "When prey gets desperate, you know you're close to catching it." They found the bridge 3 corridors later. It was heavily defended. 20 Ravagers in formation, weapons ready. This was their last line of defense. Kyle assessed the situation in seconds. "We can't break through that. Not head on." "Then what?" Tesh asked. Kyle looked at the corridor. At the walls. At the ceiling. At everything. "Ryan, those medical explosives you carry. The ones for emergency surgery. How powerful are they?" "Powerful enough to cut through bone," Ryan said. "Why?" Kyle pointed at the wall to the left of the bridge entrance. "That's an exterior wall. 1 layer of hull between us and space. We blow it. Explosive decompression. The Ravagers get sucked into space. We use magnetic boots to stay anchored." "That will kill us too," Ashka said. "Not if we're wearing atmosphere suits, and they're not," Kyle said. "The Ravagers evolved on a high-pressure world. They don't wear protective gear in ships. But we do." It was crazy. It was dangerous. It was probably going to kill them all. But it was also unexpected. And unexpected was the only advantage they had. "Everyone in suits. Now," Kyle ordered. "Seal everything. Magnetic boots. Activated." The team scrambled to comply. The aliens struggled with the unfamiliar human equipment. But they managed. Kyle placed Ryan's medical explosives on the hull wall. "Set the timer for 10 seconds. Brace," he shouted. The explosion tore the wall open. Space reached in with invisible hands and pulled everything toward the breach. The Ravagers, caught completely by surprise, were yanked off their feet. They tumbled through the hole and into the void. Their screams lasted only seconds before the vacuum killed them. Kyle's team held on. Magnetic boots locked them to the floor. Suits kept them alive. When the automatic emergency doors sealed the breach, they were still standing. The bridge entrance was clear. They moved fast. The bridge was full of Ravagers in command positions, shocked by what had just happened. Kyle's team hit them before they could react. The fight was short, brutal, but short. When it ended, Kyle stood in the center of the Ravager bridge, breathing hard. Around him, his team secured the area. Human and alien working together like they'd been doing it for years, instead of hours. "Ben, can you access their systems?" Kyle asked. "Give me a minute." Ben worked on the alien console, his fingers moving across controls that weren't designed for his species, but he adapted, figured it out. That's what humans did. "Got it," Ben said. "Transmitting shutdown codes to the entire Ravager fleet, and sending our location to Chancellor Vesh. Help should arrive soon." Kyle nodded. Then his legs gave out. He sat down hard on the deck. Adrenaline was fading. Pain was replacing it. He looked down and realized he'd been hit. A deep cut across his side. When had that happened? He couldn't remember. Ryan was beside him instantly. "Sir, you're wounded. Fix it," Kyle said simply. As Ryan worked, Kyle watched his team. Emma was helping wounded aliens. Ben was coordinating with Vesh. Tesh was tending to her injured flyers. Zekthor stood in the center of the bridge, all four eyes focused on Kyle. The insectoid approached slowly. "Captain Bennett, you were wounded and still fighting." "Didn't notice," Kyle said honestly. "You saved my life today. Multiple times. And I called your species weak." Zekthor's voice was quiet. Ashamed. "You were wrong," Kyle said. "Not angry. Just stating fact." "Yes. I was wrong." Zekthor bowed his head. "I apologize. Not just for my words, but for my arrogance. For not listening when you tried to warn us. For dismissing your species based on appearance alone." "Apology accepted," Kyle said. "Now help me up. I want to see this through." 3 days later, Kyle stood in the Galactic Council chambers again. His side was bandaged and hurt with every movement. But he was alive. They were all alive. The council chamber looked different now. Less formal. More real. These weren't just alien dignitaries anymore. They were people who had survived a battle together. Vesh spoke first. "The Ravager fleet has retreated. The threat is ended. Thanks to the courage and tactical brilliance of Captain Kyle Bennett and his team." Applause filled the chamber. Kyle noticed it came from aliens who had fought beside him, who had learned from him, who had stopped seeing humans as weak. "Captain," Vesh continued, "I owe you an apology. We judged your species based on physical characteristics. We assumed weakness where there was strength. We failed to understand that power comes in many forms." "You couldn't have known, Chancellor," Kyle said. "We're different from you. We fight differently. Think differently. But that doesn't make us weak. Just different." Zekthor stepped forward. "The Kryn Collective requests permission to establish a military training exchange with humanity. We wish to learn your methods, your adaptability, your refusal to accept defeat." "The Vryn Council joins this request," another alien said. "As does the Koth Assembly," Ashka added. More voices joined in. Species from across the galaxy, all asking to learn from humanity. Kyle looked at Lisa, who stood beside him with a proud smile. He looked at Ben, Emma, and Ryan, his team, who had fought impossible odds and won. Then he looked back at the council. "We'll share what we know," Kyle said. "But understand something. Human combat doctrine isn't about being better than you. It's about adapting to any situation. Using what works, refusing to give up. Those aren't secrets. Those are choices. Choices any species can make." Tesh spoke up from her position. "Captain Bennett, I have reviewed the battle recordings. Human forces had the highest survival rate despite being in the most dangerous positions. How is this possible?" Kyle thought about how to explain it. "We're not the strongest species. Not the fastest. Not the toughest. But humans evolved as persistence hunters. We survived by outlasting threats. By adapting faster than our environment could kill us. By being too stubborn to quit." He paused. "Earth taught us that survival isn't about strength. It's about refusing to die." Silence filled the chamber. Then Vesh spoke again. "Captain Bennett, the Galactic Council wishes to offer you a position. Galactic Defense Coordinator. You would work with all member species to improve our collective military capabilities." Kyle felt the weight of that offer. A human leading galactic defense. 3 months ago, they thought humans were too weak to help. Now they wanted a human in charge. "I accept," Kyle said. "On one condition. My team comes with me. And we train everyone who wants to learn. No species left behind. No one dismissed as too weak. Because this battle taught us something important." "What is that?" Vesh asked. "Strength isn't about claws or armor or natural weapons," Kyle said. "Strength is about refusing to give up. About adapting when plans fail. About protecting your people, no matter the cost. And every species here has that strength. You just need to learn how to use it." More applause. This time it was genuine. Not polite. Not formal. Just respect earned through shared struggle. After the ceremony ended, Kyle found a quiet observation deck. He stood there, looking at the stars. Earth was out there somewhere. Home, he wondered what they'd think if they knew humanity had just become the galaxy's military teachers. Zekthor found him there. The insectoid stood beside him in silence for a while. Then spoke. "You were right about everything, Captain. Our formations, our tactics, our arrogance, all of it was wrong." "Not wrong," Kyle said. "Just inflexible. You fought with honor. That's admirable. But honor doesn't keep you alive when the enemy doesn't care about honor." "How did humanity learn this?" Kyle smiled sadly. "We had no choice. Earth is a hard world. It tried to kill us in 1,000 ways. Predators, diseases, weather, disasters. We survived by adapting, by trying new things, by refusing to die just because the odds said we should." He looked at Zekthor. "You asked how humans learned to fight like this. We learned because the alternative was extinction." "Your species is remarkable," Zekthor said. "Every species is remarkable," Kyle replied. "You just have to look past the surface to see it." Ben approached with a tablet. "Sir, we've got requests from 40 different species for training programs. And Chancellor Vesh wants to discuss setting up a galactic military academy, with human combat doctrine as a core subject." Kyle took the tablet and scrolled through the requests. So much work ahead. So much to teach. But also, so much to learn from these alien species. Their strengths, their perspectives, their ways of seeing the universe. "Get the team together," Kyle said. "We've got a lot of planning to do." As Ben walked away, Kyle looked back at the stars. 3 months ago, humanity had been alone, scared of the vast galaxy and their place in it. Now, they were partners, teachers, defenders, not because they were the strongest, not because they were the smartest, but because when the crisis came, they had refused to give up. They had adapted. They had fought with everything they had, and in doing so, they had shown the galaxy something it had forgotten over millennia of civilization and ritual combat. Sometimes survival mattered more than tradition. Sometimes winning required breaking the rules. And sometimes the weakest-looking species could be the strongest when it mattered most. Kyle smiled. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage, and the galaxy would never underestimate them again. Somewhere in the station, alarms began wailing. Another crisis. Another threat. Kyle grabbed his weapon and headed toward the sound. Already planning and adapting, because that's what humans did. They adapted. They survived. They refused to quit, and they never, ever gave up. Ashka joined them, and mine. More aliens stepped forward. Warriors from different species who had fought alongside Kyle's team, who had seen humans fight, who had learned that strength came in many forms. Kyle looked at Ben, at Emma, at Ryan. "You 3 staying here. That's an order." "With respect, sir," Ben said. "No." Emma nodded. "We go where you go, Captain." Ryan just checked his medical supplies. "Someone needs to keep you all alive." Kyle smiled. "Then let's go show these Ravagers what happens when you underestimate humanity." They prepared for the boarding action. 12 humans, 20 aliens. Against an entire Ravager command ship. The odds were terrible. The plan was desperate. Success was unlikely, but Kyle looked at his mixed team of humans and aliens, all of them ready to fight, and thought maybe desperate plans were exactly what the galaxy needed right now. "Move out," Kyle ordered. "And remember, in combat, there are no rules except survival. Fight smart. Fight dirty if you have to. Just fight to win." They entered the maintenance tunnels. Behind them, the station continued to burn. Ahead of them, the route to the command center was full of enemies, but Kyle looked at his team, human and alien fighting side by side, and thought maybe they had a chance after all. Not because they were stronger than the Ravagers. Not because they had better weapons or superior technology. but because humans had taught the galaxy something it had forgotten in all its centuries of civilized warfare. Sometimes survival matters more than glory. Sometimes winning is more important than honor. And sometimes, the best tactic is whatever works in that moment, regardless of what the rulebook says. The battle wasn't over, but it had changed. And in that change, humanity had shown the galaxy something new: to fight in chaos. Kyle said. Someone who's not afraid to adapt, to change plans on the fly, to do whatever it takes to survive. To survive. Vera sipped her coffee. Someone like us. Someone exactly like us. Kyle finished his coffee and stood. Get some rest, Captain. Tomorrow is going to be a long day. Right. What about you? I'll sleep when I'm done planning, he smiled grimly. An old human habit. Prepare for everything, hope for the best, and never, ever give up. 18 hours later, the alarms began again. But this time, they didn't stop. The Ravagers had arrived, and they brought twice as many ships as intelligence had predicted. The battle for Orbital 7 was about to begin. DY. Listen up, Kyle said. The aliens think we're too soft for real fighting. They've given us rear support duties, but when this battle starts, I guarantee you it's not going to go the way they planned. We need to be ready for anything. What are our orders, sir? Lieutenant Ben Carter asked. Officially, move supplies and stay out of the way. Kyle crossed his arms. Unofficially, be ready to fight. Check your gear, plan for chaos, and remember your training. We might be physically average by galactic standards, but we've got something they don't. What's that, sir? A young private asked. Kyle smiled grimly. We're too stubborn to know when we're beaten.